Hey, Mike with Nerd Problems Gaming here, and today's video will be covering another new Nintendo Switch eShop sale and 10 great RPGs worth buying, so let's get into it. The first game is Cris Tales. Now, Cris Tales is a unique RPG that combines classic turn-based combat with a unique time manipulation mechanic. And so you'll actually play as a young time mage as she discovers her powers and tries to save the world around her by altering events throughout time. And so it has a really cool past, present, future mechanic where as you explore the world, it can show you a breakdown of what's happening in all of those different eras. And then depending on what you choose to do throughout the world can have an impact, and you can kind of see that almost in real time as you make changes throughout the past, present, and future. There's a lot of different side quests that you'll find along the way as well that you can explore, taking advantage of these unique mechanics. And this time mechanic element also enters the battle and combat actions as well. And so you'll have the opportunity to move enemies around the screen or basically change what time they're in. And so in some cases it might make these enemies weaker, but in others it might make them more powerful depending how you spin the dial of time. Again, it has a really cool concept, and if you're looking for a new turn-based RPG to check out, I definitely recommend it. The next game is DungeonTop. And so DungeonTop is another unique RPG that meets deck building with a dungeon crawler. And so as you start off the game, you're going to choose from several different heroes to take on these dungeon crawling challenges. And as you progress throughout the game, you'll be able to choose from characters like a warrior, mage, and rogue. And so each one of these has a unique set of abilities, weapons, and talents that you can learn over time as you level up. On top of that, each one of these character types will have multiple factions that you can choose from, and this can actually alter your starting deck, and again, this would make an impact on your play style as you progress through the game and how you build out your decks moving forward. And so the dungeons are randomly generated as well, so as you progress, it keeps things fresh. And the battle style focuses around tactical turn-based combat, mixed with a card battling system. And so again, you'll have your main hero that you'll place on the board, but on top of that, you'll be able to summon different minions to support your main character. And then you'll battle it out against enemy characters and challenging bosses as well. And I think if you like dungeon crawlers and deck building games mixed with an RPG, I think you'll like this one as well. The next game is Children of Morta, the Complete Edition. And so Children of Morta is a roguelike action RPG dungeon crawler where you play as a family of the Bergsons as they try and fight off an evil corruption that's destroying the land. And so again, the game focuses around this action combat, but each playable character or family member really has a unique play style. Some of them are very melee focused, others are more ranged attacks or magic users, and each one really feels unique as you play through them, and as they progress, their powers really emphasize around that unique ability for each character. On top of that, what's kind of cool is as you defeat enemies, you'll gain gold, which kind of acts like your experience, and you can use that to unlock new abilities and enhance skill trees for the different characters. And some of these abilities center around the specific character themselves, but others can help improve results and abilities for the entire family as a whole. And so that's really cool, and it encourages you to try other characters even if you like a certain play style. Another element that does that is that if you play as a single character for so long, they actually start to build up corruption, which can lead to negative debuffs for those characters. And so again, it's another reason why you want to try out and play as the different characters, because if you continue to play as the same one, they get weaker, so you need to give them some time to rest. It's also really cool as you progress through the story, you'll unlock more background on each member of the family and how their relationship interacts with everyone else. And so it's fun to learn those different things as you progress through the game. It has challenging combat, cool boss fights, and really addicting gameplay, and I would definitely recommend it. The next game is Cat Quest. Cat Quest is a really lighthearted and fun action RPG that's full of cat puns, funny storylines, and addicting combat. And so in this game, you'll play as a young cat as he goes on an adventure to rescue his sister that's been kidnapped. And so the game actually features more of an open world feel where you can explore the world in its entirety, and there's a lot of secrets to uncover, but on top of that, as you explore, you'll acquire different items like weapons and armor types, new spells and abilities that you can use, and the combat takes place in real time. But along with that, it really matters what equipment you use, as it can be more melee focused, more magic attack focused, and again, your armor can play a big difference as well, potentially slowing you down a lot or really maxing out your health or your magic. And so you can really make custom builds for your character that fit your playstyle. There are a lot of hidden secrets throughout the game, many different side quests to explore, a funny and quirky, unique storyline. The game itself isn't too challenging, so it is accessible for younger players, but it's still definitely a great time if you're an adult player as well. If you like fun action RPGs, I would definitely recommend picking up Cat Quest. The next game is For the King. And so For the King is a unique roguelike RPG meets tabletop RPG. And so there isn't necessarily a set storyline in the sense that there's multiple different campaigns that you can play through, sort of like different Dungeons and Dragons campaigns or a different tabletop RPG. And so you'll choose one of those to start, and at that point you'll be able to build a party from a variety of character types, and each one of these have their own unique set of abilities and skill sets and progression options as you explore throughout the game and level up your characters. Now the game itself is structured a bit more like a tabletop RPG. And so you'll have sort of a board that you can see. Much of it will be covered up that you'll need to discover as you move your characters around the board. And you'll encounter different monsters, take on side quests, visit villages, and much more. The combat itself throughout the game is more turn-based combat, and your character's attacks and abilities will be very influenced by the weapon types that you choose to use for your characters. I think if you enjoy board games or tabletop RPGs, this is another one worth checking out. The next game is the Grandia HD Collection. And so this is actually a collection of two classic RPGs, Grandia 1 and Grandia 2. And these games are more like a turn-based RPG mixed with some arena combat. And so the combat itself in both games features somewhat of a time bar or an action bar, and you'll see your characters progress across this bar. And then this also happens with the enemies as well. So you'll need to time your attacks effectively to potentially stun enemies or cancel their abilities completely, or maybe delay them further. But on top of that, when you use your abilities, it's kind of a double-edged sword as well, where some of them might take longer than others to execute, putting yourself at risk as well. And so combat is definitely fun, and each story has a fun adventure as well. And so in the first game, you center around the story of a young hero, Justin, as he wants to really experience the world and go on a grand adventure, and ends up going on a quest trying to unravel the mysterious disappearance of an ancient civilization. And Grandia 2 is a bit more classic RPG style storyline where you're playing as a young mercenary, and as he meets different characters along the way, they end up trying to band together to stop the end of the world. The second game gives you a little bit more flexibility in how you level up your characters and power up abilities, but both have fun mechanics. And I think if you like classic turn-based RPGs, these one could be worth checking out as well. The next game is Blasphemous. Now Blasphemous is an action platforming Metroidvania with some action RPG elements and a Souls-like feel. And so in this game, you're going to be playing as a lone hero as you try and save the land that has been corrupted and overrun and devastated by an evil curse. And you'll need to find a way to stop this curse to save the land. Now the game really stands out with its pixel art style that's very dark and creepy and gory. But also its challenging combat is another shining point within the game. And so you'll definitely need to master the enemy patterns, learn your character's abilities, and effectively time things like parry attacks, dodge rolls, and more. On top of that, as you defeat enemies, you'll earn Tears of Atonement, which are sort of like your experience points or currency that you can use through the game to power up your character. And so you'll have skill trees that you can unlock, which can help improve your abilities. And you'll also find different relics throughout the game that you can equip to your character, giving you other stat boosts and enhancements as well. It's a challenging action platforming RPG, and if you like Metroidvania style games, I definitely recommend it. The next game is Goodnight Knight. And so Goodnight Knight is an action adventure game meets roguelike dungeon crawling RPG. And so in this game, you'll actually play as a knight that has fallen from a massive tower and lost your memory along the way. And so you'll need to fight your way back up the tower through monster-filled dungeons in hopes of restoring your memory. And so the exploration and dungeon crawling kind of feels like a classic Legend of Zelda game, but the character progression system is pretty unique. And so you'll actually find a lot of different relics along the way, but you can only hold so many relics in your bag before you become burdened and overweight. And so throughout the game, as you kill enemies, you'll gain experience, but instead of using that to level up your character, you actually use it to level up these items, and in doing so, you'll reduce the weight of these items eventually down to 0. And this basically makes those abilities permanent attributes to your character from then on. And so it's a cool level up progression system, and it's definitely addicting to find more and more relics and try and power them up and put unique combinations together to make it through these challenging dungeons. On top of that, the combat is pretty unique, where it almost feels like a twin stick shooter meets stealth game meets classic Legend of Zelda. And so as you go around, you can actually sneak up on enemies through your field of vision, giving yourself the advantage to take out enemies quickly before they can do massive damage to your character. Again, it has really addicting gameplay. It's a cool level up mechanic, upgrading these items, allowing you to hold more and more. And it has a fun, quirky story to the game as well as you explore these different dungeons and try and climb the tower to regain your memory. I think if you like addicting RPG elements and action adventure gameplay, this one's worth checking out as well. The next game is Write and Down. And so Write and Down is a unique roguelike dungeon crawler RPG meets puzzle game. And so there's not much story to this one, but you'll start off choosing from a variety of heroes, things like warriors, mages, and more. And as you progress through the game, you'll actually unlock more characters as well. But the whole gimmick of the game and mechanic is that you can only move right or down. And so you'll have a grid-based dungeon that you'll need to explore, and you'll move your character through different boxes, and in doing so, you might defeat enemies to gain experience, pick up coins, collect armor pieces, acquire potions to heal yourself, or if you have enough gold, you can buy different relics scattered throughout the stage. And so what's really cool is there's several different world types you can enter through after each dungeon level you clear. And so you might go into a volcano that will burn your character, limiting some of your abilities you can use. Or maybe you walk into a frozen tundra that freezes some of the items you've collected, rendering them useless until you thaw yourself out. And so it's really cool facing these challenging puzzles, determining how you want to maneuver your character to maximize your abilities and acquire the right relics that can help you make it through the different levels of the dungeon. On top of that, as you progress through enough dungeon areas, you'll eventually reach your camp where you can spend some of your experience points to learn a new ability. And so these unique abilities will be activated based on the directions that you move through the dungeon. So you might have one, for example, that would harm all enemies on the screen if you move down twice and right once. And so that would happen every time that you did that. And so again, there's a variety of abilities that you'll find. Some might be healing your character, some might be giving you armor boosts, others might be taking out enemies. The list really goes on and on. But this is another cool way to build your character how you choose as you progress through the dungeons. On top of that, there's several different challenges that will slowly unlock as you clear full dungeons, adding another layer of strategy to the game. While the gameplay is pretty simplistic, it's super fun and addicting, and if you haven't picked this one up yet, I definitely recommend it. The final game on today's list is Souldiers. Now, Souldiers is an action platforming Metroidvania RPG, and you'll play as a variety of soldiers that are trying to escape a purgatory-like world and try and make their way back to the living world. And so the story doesn't get super in-depth, but it really sets up the foundation to at least get you going in the game. But after that, it really shines through its challenging combat, cool world exploration, and addicting RPG mechanics. And so when you start off the game, you'll choose from a different set of characters to play as. One of them is more of a melee focused knight, another one is more of like a ranger type character, and another one is more of a mage. And so each one of these characters really has a different play style and whole set of abilities. And so this can definitely add to the replay value of the game as you try and explore and play through as all the characters. There's a really large world to explore, and it also is kind of intertwined, almost like the Dark Souls series. Now, you might not notice that right away when you start playing, but the longer you play through the game, the more different areas start to combine and connect with each other, and so it's really cool to experience that as well. So you have your standard leveling up as well, so as you kill characters, you'll gain experience and level up, but then each one of these characters will also have a skill tree that you can build out, further enhancing your abilities. The game has challenging bosses and a massive world to explore. And again, I think if you like Metroidvania style RPGs, this one's worth checking out as well. But again, hopefully you enjoyed this video on this latest Nintendo Switch eShop sale and 10 more great RPGs to buy. If you did, be sure to hit that like button as it really helps out the channel. And if you're going to pick up any of these games or have played them before, let us know your thoughts on them in the comments below. And if you'd like to help support the channel, pick out content and more, consider becoming a patron of ours over at nerdproblemsgaming.com/Patreon. And another really cool way you can help support the channel is we actually partnered with a game store, Nutmeg Games. So if you like board games, Pokemon cards, Magic cards, and more, you can actually head to nutmeggames.com/nerdproblemsgaming or use our promo code nerdproblemsgaming at checkout and get 10% off your order and help support our channel at the same time. But again, if you like videos like this on video games, board games, and everything nerdy, check out one of our other videos here. And if you haven't done so yet, be sure to subscribe and turn on the bell notifications to get the latest updates of new nerd videos we put out and to make sure you don't miss out on any future sale videos so you can take advantage of these great deals. But once again, thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you more soon.